How did religion develop in human evolution? This is going to be a great episode. Check this out. This is TenOnReligion. Hey peeps, it's Dr. B with TenOnReligion. If you like religion and philosophy content, one thing I really need you to do is to smash that sub button because it really helps out the channel. Also, if you find this content interesting, drop me a super thanks here on the YouTube machine. The transcript is available at TenOnReligion.com, and new episodes are posted about every 2 weeks at noon U.S. Pacific time, so drop me some views. The late UC Berkeley sociologist Robert Bellah led a group of researchers to publish a book on religion and American life back in 1985 titled Habits of the Heart. It was based on a 5-year study of various communities describing religion and the search for meaning in society. This popular book put Bellah on the big academic stage in the field of sociology and religion and eventually set him up for his large 600-page magnum opus as really one of the top books describing the development of religion in humanity. This is the 2011 work published 2 years before his death titled Religion in Human Evolution, From the Paleolithic to the Axial Age. In this book, the first 2 chapters set up the idea of religion and development, followed by 7 chapters which describe religion from tribal beginnings through the geographical areas of ancient Israel, Greece, China, and India. It is a lot, and I mean a lot, to take in. But let's relay a few things about this book. Bellah defines religion as a system of beliefs and practices relative to the sacred that unite those who adhere to them in a moral community. It is socially constructed. Some 5 million or more years ago, the lineages leading to modern humans, Homo sapiens, divided from the ones leading to the chimpanzees. We don't know when modern grammatical language evolved, but we know that it occurred only among Homo sapiens at some point in its gradual speciation. By 100,000 years ago, full grammatical language developed in humans, making oral narratives possible, but the writing of such narratives did not begin to occur until around 1000 BCE, or about 3,000 or so years ago. In many cases, it was actually much later than that, probably between the years of 500 to 200 BCE. Part of this book attempts to understand religion as rudimentarily as we can in this Paleolithic or before writing age. Bellah then describes, using numerous case studies and illustrations or examples, some possible ways on how religion emerged from this pre-writing stage of humanity to tribal societies, to what's known as archaic societies, and finally to the 4 main axial age civilizations of ancient Israel, ancient Greece, ancient China, and ancient India. The time period this book covers ends before Christianity and Islam even appear on the scene, so they are not covered here. The transition from the archaic era into axial age is really the main focus, and this means the transition when a society changed old hierarchies, rituals, and myths or stories into new ones, which are more universal in scope. One way of making the distinction between scientific and humanistic methodologies is to say that scientific explanations are concerned with the causes and functions of the activities under study, while humanistic understanding is concerned with their meaning. Through childhood, humans learn by acting out scenarios, using symbols, and eventually get to the point of understanding more complex concepts. Religions are no different from this. Back in the early evolution of the human species, intentional play developed, and Bellah sees this as related to the rise of religious rituals. Various types of elements began to emerge, which was the beginning of culture. People learn through repetition, and that is the part of culture in which individuals learn from the experience of previous events, both what kind of event they are facing and how the elements in it are situated so that an appropriate response is possible. This included things like gestures, emotional expressions, asking for help, or warning of danger. By the time tribal cultures arose, moral community norms protected the family and kept despotic behavior in check. You see, despotic tendencies in human beings are so deeply ingrained that they cannot simply be renounced. Seeing each other as equals is not simply the absence of despotism. One must always be active and continually on the lookout to eliminate any people or ideas which may lead to potential despotism, tyranny, or absolutism. Bellah then looks to archaic societies before 1000 BCE, which led up to the Axial Age. This is when social divisions really started to develop, which were unequal in wealth and power. Religion and the kingship were seen as closely connected. Architecture in the form of monuments emerged mainly for ritual or royal use only, such as ziggurats, temples, and of course pyramids. A new relationship between the gods and humans developed, which helped organize and stabilize society. Basically, the natural world, the divine, and human society were seen as integrated parts of the same universe. Then Bellah really gets into the meat and bones of his book by examining the Axial Age. This phrase, coined by Karl Jaspers in his 1949 book The Origin and Goal of History, refers to the time period from roughly 800 to 200 BCE when many key thinkers in religion and philosophy emerged in different parts of the globe. Bellah looks at ancient Israel, Greece, China, and India. In older tribal societies, rituals often involve participation of most or all members of a group. In archaic societies, rituals often only involved a few people, like the divine or semi-divine king, and priests or members of the royal family. But that would change. In the Axial Age, cultures were already familiar with myths as a method to interpret and understand both the past, present, and future. Then, writing systems began to emerge, and the mythic cultures told a new and different written story without really denying their previous spoken stories. In fact, the very idea of myth as a story that is not true is a product of the Axial Age, because in tribal and archaic societies, believers in one myth did not have a need to find the myths of others false. Now, let's talk about the four ancient cultures. In ancient Israel, the original god was El because Israel means El rules. El was a generic West Semitic name for a god, spirit, or ancestor. From this came many Canaanite gods, including gods with the names El and Baal, which dominated the early kingdoms. In later centuries, another god named Yahweh emerged, and long after that, an exclusive group of Yahweh alone worshippers rose. After the Assyrian attack and exile on Israel, later known as the Northern Kingdom, the Yahweh alone group gained political control and wrote, or in some cases rewrote, the story, which is the one that has survived and is still told today in many of the biblical documents. In ancient Greece, society became increasingly culturally advanced through the polis, a city-state, or more properly, citizen-state, in which citizens approved the leaders and their decisions for all of society. Initially, it was oligarchy, where noble families ruled, and then much later, democracy. Writing emerged through several centuries, and with it, the myths or stories about great gods. Bellah reminds us that we sometimes forget that myths are simply narratives or stories, as the Greek word mythos implies. Narratives in mythic form refer to something of collective importance for the whole group to remember, as can be seen in the epic poetry and other novels in this era of Greek culture. Greek tragedies and plays also arose as a popular genre of literature. Before they were performed publicly, a series of religious rituals were often performed to define the meaning of the event, such as the procession of a statue or animal sacrifices, for example. These performances regularly connected religious and political themes simultaneously as two sides of the same coin. Eventually, we have the rise of the great philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and Hellenism, the spread of Greek language and culture all throughout the Mediterranean basin, which had an enormous influence on the later Roman Empire and early centuries of Christianity. In ancient China, the axial transition occurred when a society ruled by warriors was being transformed into a society ruled by kingly bureaucrats. The Analects of Confucius was the central text in which the ethical formation of people was a chief concern. What we now refer to as religion in the West became highly internalized in China. Any notion of salvation was realized in society through a just political realm. It was all about self-cultivation, whereby one could identify with an ultimate moral order, with the Tao and the will or mandate of heaven. There was little emphasis about life or reward after death. Instead, teaching focused on living an ethical life in the present with a resulting good conscience. In ancient India, evidence for writing does not appear until the 3rd century BCE, and the first reliable dates begin with the inscriptions of Ashoka, who reigned from the 260s to 232. But what makes the Indian case unique is that the oral transmissions of ancient texts is exact word for word, even down to the accents involved. Thus, the Indic development of what has been called hyper-orality, a complex system of cross-checking for verbal accuracy, turns out to be a unique kind of oral technology that is the functional equivalent of writing. The texts that we have now were hymns used in early sacrificial rituals, asking for a variety of things such as wealth in the form of cattle, healthy childbirths, long life, and victory in battle. Early religious texts set out guidelines for society where gods were prominent, such as Agni, the fire god. In the later Vedic period, a breakthrough occurred with the emergence of the Upanishads, which asked larger questions concerning existence and moved to a higher level of abstraction. For example, the god Brahman became more of an abstract idea of Brahman as the widest external reality. This was then connected or contrasted with the deepest internal reality called Atman. The term Dharma became a central ethical term, and the Varna or caste system emerged as a representative relationship connecting the cosmos and society. In Axial India, we also have the beginnings of Buddhism and the great epic poems, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Listen, this book has a huge amount of history, and I am just scratching the surface. So how does Bellah sum up all of this enormous amount of information? He states that in these 4 cases of Israel, Greece, China, and India, there was a transition in the Axial Age that was harshly critical of the existing social-political conditions, which was combined with and expressed through religion. One of the main problems with the transitions that occurred in the Axial Age was a strong tendency to deal with humanity in terms of a radical dichotomy. It was always us versus them, and we're still kind of there today. The antidote to this is serious people who can study history and religion and then accept religious pluralism without necessarily making a claim to the superiority of any one tradition. But since we are always so focused on our group, identity is probably a human evolutionary protection response to danger, it's so hard for many people to accept difference, however difference is defined. So what did you think about Robert Bellah's book, Religion in Human Evolution? Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. If you want to buy it or get it from a library and read the whole thing yourself, make sure you've got a lot of time on your hands. But again, if this was in any way helpful, drop me a super thanks. Until next time, stay curious. If you enjoyed this, support the channel in the link below. Please like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. This is TenOnReligion.